Welcome to Mental Health Monday. My name is Jerry Walker and I'm a licensed professional counselor. And today we're going to talk about holiday survival when you have said goodbye to a loved one. This year, probably more than any year, is the perfect storm because not only if you've said goodbye to your loved one this year, and as you know, we're dealing with a pandemic and the holidays are coming. This is big. So if you're wondering why you're dreading and having some fear and not feeling really great, well, guess what? It's normal. This is huge. So for the next few moments, we're just going to have a conversation. We're going to kind of unpack some things, look at 6 things that maybe you can do that might be helpful. I always like to use the analogy as to the why that we talk about this as like packing a bag for a trip. You've probably gone on those trips where you thought you had everything you needed, but you had no idea what the weather was going to be. It's kind of like that when you approach the holidays and you're also carrying this load of grief. So it makes sense then to think about what is it that we really need that might help us get through, that others have told us helps get through, and then knowing that grief sometimes has a mind of its own anyway, and that is really normal as well. So we're going to look at 6 things, and the first thing that we're going to look at is being able to acknowledge and say yes, that this is a really different year. It's different if you have said goodbye to a loved one. It's different if your loved one passed away a few years ago, but because of the pandemic, you are feeling isolated, and what you would typically do is not available for you to do. So let's look at, for the example of tradition of the holidays. It's big. You know, you think about what you did together as a family and how your loved one played such an important part of that. And you may have done things like go to concerts, or you may have come over and helped each other put the tree up, or if your loved one lived in another area, you were at this time of year, you were booking your ticket to go and you go home. So many traditions that the holidays are just steeped in tradition. And so when you think about this time of year, it's no wonder that we need to take a little extra time to think and pack that bag so we can survive. Sometimes there are triggers also that are important to acknowledge, and you might even want to just get a piece of paper out and write down these triggers that you know. For example, maybe the lights around me, these trees, maybe just seeing the beauty of the season, or maybe it's the Christmas music. Maybe you did some special baking that you came together and did. I know in my family, when we would go home to visit my mom, she would make her once a year cake donuts, cinnamon sugar cake donuts, which were to die for. So we would make those. And so that's one tradition that my daughter and I have continued. We really like those donuts. And so we decided, well, we could keep doing that. I also was talking to a client last week, and he was just talking about the holidays and that the death of his wife is coming up very, very soon. So he was struggling with that. And he did what I think is so typical and normal when we face this in our lives. We say, I don't think I want to do any of it. And you know what? That's your choice. You don't have to do any of it. Nobody's going to be grading you if you don't do any of it. However, he did say, as he began to tell the story, and telling the story is so important, I said, well, tell me one of the things that you would be doing this time of year together. And he said, well, my wife was in the kitchen. She loved to bake. And he goes, I can't imagine even starting to think about how to do that, or even if I would want to. And I said, well, tell me about your granddaughter who's 6. Well, we have good times together. And I said, well, what would it look like if you were to do one thing together in the kitchen in honor of that wonderful tradition? And he sat there for a few moments and he thought about it and he said, yes, Yes, we can do that. We're not going to do what she would have done because we can't go there. But we're going to make brownies because she and I love Ghirardelli chocolate brownies. And I said, great. So it's that time of deciding some traditions I just don't need to do right now. But possibly, what is that one tradition that you could start, or that you take a little of the old and bring it forward so that you're starting a new tradition, especially if there are children around, because this is the next chapter that you're beginning to write. Secondly, acknowledge and say yes to all of those feelings and thoughts that pervade your mind and your heart. Probably one of the most difficult things. What do we tend to want to do? And we all do this. We want to push it down. We want to run away. We don't want to feel it because you know what? It's very painful. We don't tend to want to go toward pain. And when the thoughts start happening, we decide we can do all sorts of things to block. However, I would like to offer a suggestion about that. When those thoughts and feelings start, if you can just remind yourself that really this is paying tribute and honor to your loved one, because there's a big hole in your life now, and it is okay to have all of those feelings, and they may be feelings of fear and dread, anxiety and depression. You know the list. I don't need to tell you. They're all there, and they're real, and they're yours, and you can own them. Now, are you going to sit with those all day long? Probably not. One of the things that I work with clients all the time in helping to understand how routine and scheduling is actually kind of helpful during this time, so that you don't feel like something is totally taking over. So maybe it's looking at your day, for example, and when is there the time that you typically find those feelings are the most real, and taking a moment and being with those feelings and recognizing the importance they play in the healing process, because they do. So it's acknowledging and saying yes to all of those thoughts and feelings. Thirdly, acknowledging and saying yes to caring for yourself. More than ever this year, with grief, with the pandemic, and with the holidays, self-care couldn't be any more important. What is your routine that you do for self-care? Think about it. Maybe this is where you also get the pen and paper out and you begin to write some things down. And it might be just little things. I particularly like to have a cup of tea at a certain time of day. And I sit and I turn the phone off and I just look out my window because I have bird feeders out there. And I just love watching the birds. So that's my time when I am just being. And if you can do that and figure out when that could work, I think you'll find that there's a calming in that. Not only do we need to figure that out, but we also, research tells us, just about any article you read about what we do for ourselves to help minimize some of the stress that we feel, is to move our bodies. Now, I know that's not easy. I am not a person that actually loves to get up and go running. I know there are people like that. I work with a person like that and actually find that quite annoying. However, I do know that it is so important that we figure out how we're going to do this. And adding the pandemic into this, and the fact that our clocks have just gone back and we're losing light at the end of the day, more than ever, the need to get out, to walk, to get our heads up. Today happens to be the day I'm filming. The sun is shining, yay. And I plan to be on the trail this afternoon because of the importance of letting it go, and also of seeing nature around us. Nature, it is so healing. And it's figuring out, and that's for me, but it's figuring out what is it for you that you do that makes a difference. Maybe it's that phone call to a sibling or to a friend who you just love to talk to, and they are good listeners. You know, when we begin to tell our stories, it is probably one of the best things we do is to find a good listener for self-care that can let us. It has been said that people start to heal the moment they feel heard. I think that's true. And so finding that person that will be part of your self-care list that you can talk to, you'll come up with some. Maybe it's music. Does music give you that sense of calm or get you dancing? Does movies, does it take you away a little while so that you get relief from all of that bag of grief that you're carrying? Whatever it is, it's worthwhile. Make the list, because I don't know about you, but if I don't make the list and if I already get to the place where I'm not feeling good or depression is setting in, then I might not remember what those self-care options are. So make the list and have it available. Also, at the end of that time of self-care, if you can just name a couple things that you're grateful for. When we begin to make lists of gratitude, physiologically, things change in our brain. We actually start producing more serotonin and dopamine, which are the good neurotransmitters that help us feel better. So we can do that, but it is that remembering, it's writing it down so that we know what are we grateful for today. It can make a difference when that becomes a habit in our lives. Number 4, acknowledge and say yes to your limitations. You may have a lot of people calling you and saying, well, you know, I know it's a hard time, but you just need to get up and get out. You know, I'll come by and pick you up, or we're gonna watch this together, or Zoom together 5 times. I have friends that just wanna Zoom all the time. And maybe that's too much. Maybe what you're doing is enough, and you need to listen to that inner voice that says, I'm tired, I need to rest a little bit. It's okay to do that. Remember, you make the rules this year. You don't have to have someone else's playbook. This is yours. And so taking the time to recognize your limitations, maybe if you're gonna walk, 15 minutes is fine. And if you just do that and get out and get back, wow, you've done it. And you set the limit that works for you. What works for you may not work for someone else, but that's okay. This is your grief journey. You can own that. So it's saying yes to your limitations. The 5th thing that we can do is tell our story and say yes to it. Acknowledge again that this is a difficult time. Acknowledge that you're writing a chapter that you didn't know potentially that you were going to have to write. So all of those feelings and mixed emotions and all of the memories that may be coming flooding back right now, this is your next chapter. And again, as we talked before about the self-care of finding someone that can hear your story. And if you are an introvert and really struggle with telling that story, maybe you could write it. maybe you could begin to journal what it is that you're going through right now. And it's an interesting thing when we actually put it on paper. In the years to come, and you reflect back on this year, you may say, I don't know how I got through the pandemic, the loss, the holidays. I don't know how I did that. And when we have journaled and written about this time, it's kind of like revisiting a roadmap. It's saying, oh yeah, this is how I got through that. It also might be helpful to someone else. You know, when we can come out of our own pain and be present for someone else, and maybe we bring our pain with it, that's okay. But when we can be present, whether it's through telling our story, showing them our journal, or just texting them and saying, I'm thinking of you, when we do that, then it's also an amazing thing that happens for us. We are reminded that we are not alone. It reminds us that we really are a part of something so much bigger. And when we do that, I think that helps us see hope. So, again, thinking about saying yes to telling your story or writing your story. It's an important part of healing. The sixth thing that we can do is acknowledge and say yes to getting help. There are some times in this process that the darkness doesn't go away. That you get up in the morning and you think, I know I should be doing all of these things, but there is absolutely no energy, no ability to see past the moment, that the fear is overwhelming, and all you can do is just sit in your chair and cry. Crying is a wonderful thing, actually. I know I have had so many people say to me, well, I don't cry because if I start, I don't think I'll stop. You will stop. I can promise you that. However, if you feel like all I do is sit in my chair and cry, I feel so isolated, I don't feel that life is really worth it now, those are big warning flags. And those are flags that say, please reach out and get some help. How do you do that? You can first of all call your physician and get an appointment, because depression sometimes needs the help of, well, first of all, your doctor needs to know, because this is all encompassing. This isn't just an emotional thing. This is physiologically and emotionally and spiritually. Grief impacts all of those segments of our lives. So going to your doctor is really important. Also, if you don't have a counselor, your doctor can help refer. Or you can call the church and we will see that you get a referral as well. There are resources out there. There are virtual groups now happening. Griefshare.org is an agency that we use and have used their curriculum here, and it's wonderful. And you can go on their website, and they have virtual groups now. So you can join a group, meet others. What's so great about that is you find that you're on a Zoom call with people who are all potentially walking this same path. They may be having almost the exact same day that you're having. And that all by itself is a reminder that you're not alone. And that's so important to know. So don't suffer alone. We don't get any medals at the end of life for holding this and suffering our way through it. We were made for community. We were made to help each other. So please take advantage of that and find the help that you need. And again, if you need help figuring that out, please call the church. I know we started this out by saying that this was a survival guide. Maya Angelou is one of my favorite poets, and she says these words: "My mission in life is not merely to survive, but to thrive, and to do so with some passion, some compassion, some humor, and some style." I'm hoping that some of this might be true for you too. And I'm really glad that you joined me for these few minutes. You are courageous. You are doing the work. You got up this morning. You're doing it. And you are going to get through this. So let us know if we can help. There will be some websites available at the bottom of this script that you can call and reach out to. Also, I'll invite you to join me next week when we meet together, and I'm going to interview two of our pastors, Pastor Debbie and Pastor Dwayne, who have both had significant losses in their lives, and what it was like for them and what they did to get through this holiday season. Again, so glad you were here. Thank you.